have the pleasure of welcoming you to this session this morning on Discourse and Action, the first fruits of the Wilmette Institute's Social Transformation Certificate Program. It really has been an amazing process to first envision with a group what a certificate program would look like that would empower individuals to truly contribute to discourse in a profound way. Just a few words about the Wilmette Institute before we start with our amazing panelists who will share insights from the certificate program, and then we'll have an activity, and then we'll come back to have a general discussion together. So many of you know the Wilmette Institute is an online educational program offering university courses and extension courses, utilizing transformative education to really look at issues from the root cause of the problems that we face in society, really question underlying assumptions that we have, and then being able to use theory, right, of that the general voices in our prevalent discourses, those theories with praxis. So to be able to marry those together so that we're not just starting with words and ending with words, but we start with words and end in some form of action that helps us evolve individually and collectively towards the betterment of the world. So of course there are many things to say about the Wilmette Institute, but just one more thing that I will share is that generally the Baha'i global enterprise, if you will, is to work in three areas: community building, social action, and contributing to discourse. And all of them are interrelated one with the other. So at this juncture in the development of the Wilmette Institute, we are focused on raising capacity for discourse, because conversations are where ideas begin, and the way we think manifests our institutions, our local development, and our own development. So just to name the 4 courses that we have right now in this certificate program, you have to take 3 out of 4 to get it. One is Catalysts of Social Change, Knowledge, Action, and Impact. It looks at nonviolent social change, its history, its theory, and its practice. And of course, focuses on how we can become effective protagonists of social change. The second one is Reconstructing Blackness, Anti-Racism and Unity in the U.S. It's an examination of how individual transformation to an anti-racist society requires reconstructing race, which we all know is socially constructed, and blackness in the U.S. This course deals with the most significant manifestations of racism, root causes, and the Baha'i perspective. Then the third course is Human Prosperity and Sustainable Development. Looks at the theoretical underpinnings, the spiritual material frameworks on local and global applications of sustainability, examines the interplay between spiritual and material dimensions of sustainability. And boy, are there a lot of conflicts of voices about the direction we need to go, what needs to be done, what is priority, and this is what we look at in the class. Last but not least is the education course, and that is Transforming Education, Knowing, Learning, and Being. And it's academic and experimental appreciation of the centrality of education in building a prosperous society, freeing our minds and our ability to basically become protagonists of our own development. Our current faculty, just so you can have an idea of who's teaching presently. And then I'll end with this testimonial before I introduce our a wonderful panel. And Elga Egba was doing her own doctorate program when she was in this certificate program. And what she said really moved me, so I wanted to share it with you. Let's see if we could get it.
Stacked in boxes.
Oh boy, here we go.
Well, they have it on there.
Sorry.
The sound's not connected there. Should we just play it from here?
Okay.
I have a speaker you can hook to play later on.
It's okay. Just we can listen.
I wish I had the same kind of fulfillment for me class. And the fulfillment came about because I felt like it addresses issues in education, it addresses the levels of content and appreciation that fits my soul. That is not just on intellectual levels. You know, I felt really fulfilled on so many levels. But also, I'm feeling a lot more empowered to be able to contribute to discourses in all the areas that I'm involved.
So, starting with our panelists who will also share these insights, our dear Emily Chou. Oh, let me get this on.
It's on his.
Oh, it's on, okay.
He's getting there.
So for the past decade, Emily has taught children and adults from all walks of life, including refugee and immigrant populations, church Sunday school children, and public school attendees. She earned her Master's of Education and now teaches in public elementary school. As a homefront pioneer outside of Los Angeles, whoop whoop to the LA people here, but we lost her, this is the thing, okay. She worked towards equitable spiritual and material education. Her goals are to study and advance literacy, especially among populations learning English, and work to provide equitable education in her new community, Las Vegas. Sad for us, but such a gain for Nevada. Next, we have Susan Wolfe from Texas. Susan is a community consultant who provides nonprofits, government, education, and healthcare organizations throughout the U.S. services for evaluation, strategic planning, and coalition development. Her main interest is in working to reduce health and educational inequities using participatory and inclusive methods. She has a Master's of Arts in Community Psychology from Michigan State University and a PhD in Human Development from the University of Texas at Dallas, and recently earned her Certificate of Completion from the Social Transformation Certificate Program at the Wilmette Institute. And we have Geri Lynn Peak. Geri is a committed spiritual warrior of love and justice, striving to bring humility, service, diligence, wisdom, and discernment to clients, collaborators, and community. As an evaluation scholar practitioner, she aligns spiritual principles with action that inform just technologies for learning and advancement, illuminating Baha'u'llah's prescription for transforming social reality. This August, she marks her 50th year as a Bahai. Woo woo! Give it up. A fiber artist, jewelry designer, poet, dancer, drummer, and avid organic vegetable gardener, this native of Los Angeles resides now in Baltimore, Maryland, with her husband, grown twin daughters, too many cats, and diverse garden of sovereign food, and is blessed to have her 92-year-old mama living independently nearby. So friends, help me welcome this wonderful panel today.
everyone. I'm Emily Chou, and I'm a first grade teacher, as she mentioned, and I recently moved to Las Vegas about a month ago from Pasadena, California, where we were pioneering in our neighborhood. I was raised in a Mormon family and became more interested in the Baha'i faith after meeting my now husband back in high school. And recently, that's within the last 5 years or so, I've been more involved with the community building activities and the institute process, and that's brought a lot of meaning and purpose to my life. And also, anyone who has talked to me in the last year or two has definitely known how much I love the certificate program and how much I talk about it in everyday conversations with my peers and friends and all these people about the concepts and bring up the resources that I teach, that we learned about in class. So although I'm relatively new to the faith and these different concepts and things, some of these profound realizations for me might just already be second nature for many of you. But I thought it would still be helpful to share kind of my journey on this process of the certificate program, both about my life individually and then about my community collectively, through the pedagogy of the courses that's allowed me to develop my capacity to contribute to public discourse. So I'll start by sharing this quote from Carlberg and Smith on constructive agency and the Baha'i method of social transformation. The Baha'i teachings, resonant with the Gandhian philosophy, suggest that the most effective way to pursue social transformation is through constructive agency, by consciously, intentionally, and systematically building a new social order amidst the violence and oppression of the prevailing order. This Baha'i commitment does not entail criticism of others who employ consciously conflictual methods in the pursuit of justice. Rather, Baha'is have faith that their purely constructive program will, over time, make a vital commitment to the transformation of society alongside other movements struggling for justice in their own ways. And in this first course, we study this article and we study different of these prevailing forms of methods like change makers like Martin Luther King and Gandhi and how they decided to transform society and compare that in the method with how Baha'is are trying to transform society. And throughout the course, I gained a new way of viewing the world, a different lens and a different language about how that we don't have to contest for power, that we can build up through these using constructive agency and constructive programs. And understanding that the Baha'i Institute is a constructive program that's transforming the world in many places across the planet. And that the actions of regular everyday people like me or like any of us can also be constructive in our fields and in other forms also. So I'd like to start with first my personal transformation and then collective transformation. So first I came into the courses with a very limited understanding of all of these course concepts about racism and education. Well, I guess I would say I didn't think I had a limited understanding of these concepts, but after taking the courses and studying more, and even on my own field where I'm technically a Master of Education, I learned so many new things that I realized there's also just so much more to learn. And it's through these really carefully picked resources, these readings and podcasts and videos that I mentioned I still reference today all the time, that they're also both Baha'i sources and non-Baha'i sources, and I learned to analyze those a little more carefully and thinking instead of just hearing a concept and just being like, wow, that sounds great, it looks like it's aligned, it has those buzzwords, and then actually thinking of what are the assumptions being made by these different things. So it helped me to just think a lot more and align those things with the vision of Baha'u'llah. And the next transformation I witnessed in myself was that I was a participant, much more passive in my commitment and action. And I was active in the institute process in my community, teaching children's classes, and we lived in our neighborhood. We hosted junior youth camps at our house, all these different things. But in my field of education, or with my peers, or even with my family, I didn't feel like I was an active contributor in those spaces. And I think this program definitely helped us to become and take steps on that journey towards being constructive. And then lastly, I thought my life was much more compartmentalized, kind of separating these different parts of my life. And this program definitely helped me to be more coherent, helping understand that studying all of these resources and all the actions I took, and it permeated all these different areas of my life. And it was through this CARS, Consultation, Action, Reflection, Study model that I realized can and should be applied to every area of my life, that it was much more effective and I could take action in many settings. So one of the greatest parts of the certificate program's pedagogy is that it has a course project where we have to go out and have conversation. We have to study first, and then we go out and we plan conversations with people in our communities, and then we come back and we reflect on how those conversations went, and then we revise things, and then we go back out and have more conversations and come back. And through that, we're engaging in this public discourse and also being assisted and accompanied by the course faculty and anyone else who we're talking with in the class or participating in the forums in the course. And so through that process, it really helps us to, hone in on our skills for participating in social discourse. So here's some of more of the collective transformation. For the first course, I decided to design and teach a summer class for a summer school program at my school. And at first I was thinking, we should just teach about Gandhi and Martin Luther King because they're just great things and they changed the world and all these things. And as I studied more and as I would reflect with the faculty members and things like that, I realized, and we learned more about universal participation and generation and dissemination of knowledge, and realized, maybe I restructured the course and was able to focus on qualities. And then through that, yes, we studied like a few different things from some of these famous people, change maker people. But the biggest thing was that the students themselves had to practice their quality of talking about these qualities. They went home and they had to ask their parents or anyone in their area for a story of someone who exhibited that quality. And then they talked about it, then they would bring it back to class and they would share that with the class. And then at the end of the course, we were able to have parents come and hear these stories of all these wonderful people in their community who had exhibited these qualities. And in that way, we learned, that we can all be part of generating knowledge and being part of that transformation. Additionally, the past 2 years, I've been doing some other kinds of projects, such as inviting parents into the classroom to share about their cultures and traditions, focusing on students' capacity building. This is one of my students who we learned about, recognizing these different qualities, and he's talking about how his brother was sick in the hospital and he was being hopeful and not just, feeling sad. He was hopeful his brother would get better. At 6 years old, it was very, very sweet. I planned conversations with teachers, and at first maybe my first conversations, I was like, great, I printed out the article from the course, and I was like, let's study at this time, and I'll interview the person, and it was just a lot more structured, and I realized, it was really awkward and didn't work very well. And so then I went back and I reflected and received some more feedback, and then I go back and then I just, I decided, maybe I should just study and understand the topics of the course and then be able to go and to have conversations when it came up naturally. And that led to a lot more effective conversations. Now I feel a lot more prepared to talk to teachers about different concepts as they just come up naturally. Additionally, we had, at the end of each course, I would present kind of some of the things we studied in class to our devotional group of young adults. And we were able to encourage a lot of more deepened understanding, and some social action things came from that. Like one of our friends decided to host a picnic for her community, and we came and we talked about some of these resources about sustainability at the picnic with her neighbors. And I guess one of the things I learned, all these different qualities of having discourse, that to have it in a loving way, that we're like calmly talking about these things, that there's no contention, we're not taking sides, and we're all truly seeking to understand. And I think through this course, as a result, I was able to have the most important conversation in my life, I guess I would say. Whereas a few years ago, I had a conversation with my family about religion, and they're all Mormon. And so I was it was a very difficult conversation and very contentious and conflicting, and I just vowed to myself that I would never talk to my family about religion again. And after taking this course and learning about these qualities of discourse and how to have these conversations, I planned a conversation with them, and I was able to, along with a lot of other things that were happening, to help them grow closer and understand the faith and things like that. But I was able to plan and carry out a conversation with my family. I felt very calm and at peace, and though there was conflict or accusations or different things, felt like I was able to actually lovingly address these things with my family and have this beautiful conversation with them, and answer their questions. And it was my goal for so many years to have my decision to become a Baha'i become a unifying experience for everyone involved, and I thought that was impossible before. And after this whole process, it's many things of many of my life, but the Wilmette Institute definitely greatly impacted my ability to be able to have these kinds of conversations with my family. And back in September, I officially did become a Baha'i, so that was very exciting. I also planned some conversations with my beautiful friend Martha here, who's a mom of 5 children, but these are her 2 children who, after our conversations about education and its importance, she enrolled in classes to learn English at the community college. And then these are her 2 children, Veronica and Kelvin, who are in my children's class before. And they were able to, we talked about material and spiritual education and their importance, and they enrolled also in the Baha'i-inspired school in our community. So that was beautiful, and I know that's going to impact them their whole lives. We've also, as the part of the last course, we gathered as some educators in the LA area, and we were able to study some of the materials from the course. And from that, I have a new friend who we're hoping to start write and creating these meaningful books for these young early readers, to have some more meaningful content that are able to help them to develop their qualities also. So I could talk for hours about all of these different conversations and projects and different things that many of the people in all the courses are doing in their own ways. But I hope you can see that from someone who didn't feel empowered at all in many aspects of my other areas of my life. Besides the Institute process, I didn't feel necessarily empowered to do much outside of that. But through this project, through having this action and reflection and study at the same time, it was able to help transform me and then help transform the community and see what was possible also based on my reality. So the biggest kind of reflection I have of the certificate program is that it's so aligned to the 9-year plan to help us contribute to public discourse, and that its pedagogy of the course aligns so well to Book 10. These are all qualities that Book 10 mentions about a path of service. It's definitely aligned to the vision of Baha'u'llah. It invites participation not only of the person, it's not just me taking the course, but all the people mentioned in the last slide and more. Those people are all impacted by one person taking this course, and that's happened for any of the participants everywhere. It beckons new horizons. There's many new things happening often. It definitely demands a lot of effort. You have to study a lot. You got to read a lot. I see Elga nodding to me. And participate in the forums and these things, but it's so worth it because it's helping you to become better and build your capacities. And then it accommodates many different strides and paces, and people are working in all different settings across, I think, Canada and the US generally. And you're able to contribute in whatever ways make sense in your neighborhoods. And you're definitely in the company of others, whether it's the people in your classes or the faculty who are with you every step of the way and giving you all these different ideas and things like that. So it's this beautiful vision that helps it. So last, I'd like to close with this quote from the Universal House of Justice. and also just thank the Wilmette Institute for helping transform my understanding of the world so that I feel like I can better contribute to it. This is talking about the goals of the 9-year plan. It means learning how to raise up vibrant, outward-looking communities. It means those communities learning how to bring about spiritual and material progress. It means learning how to contribute to the discourses that influence the direction of that progress. These areas of endeavor are naturally familiar ones, seen from one perspective. They are quite distinct, each having its own characteristics and imperatives. Yet they all represent ways of awakening the energies latent in the human soul and channeling them towards the betterment of society. The Wilmette Institute Certificate Program has changed my life and helped me to awaken these latent energies that I had in me and help channel them towards the betterment of society, as it did for all of the participants. And I recommend it to anyone who's willing to put the work in to develop their capacities, to deepen their understanding of these relevant topics, to engage in discourse, and to make constructive efforts in their communities. So, yes. Let's turn it over to Susan.
Good morning. O ye beloved of the Lord, in this sacred dispensation, conflict and contention are in no wise permitted. Every aggressor deprives himself of God's grace. This spoke to me when I was thinking about my presentation as basically, okay, I have a joke with a friend of mine. I always put a shameless picture of my dogs into every presentation, and so we just stuck it in here too, because I just do that. Anyways, my background is in community psychology, and when I attended Michigan State and learned community psychology, I did so because things had happened. I was angry at the world, and I wanted to change things. I was not a Baha'i at that time. I'm fairly recent Baha'i, about, 3.5 years, maybe, about that. Geri is my spiritual mother who brought me to the faith. And, but I learned that you bring about social change using experimental methods, through random controlled trials, through research, through advocacy with politics and all that, activism, marching and being angry, and through disruption. That's how I was trained to bring about social change. My field has changed some, with some tension now between scientific method and decoloniality. So there's a lot of rethinking within the field, but back in the 80s when I learned that you bring about social change by being, loud and disruptive. And it's a very contentious process. So then when I engaged with the Institute, it gave me kind of an alternative perspective. We started learning about Gandhi and King and about ways of bringing about change that were peaceful and more about just doing the change instead of fighting our way through, just kind of doing it. And that I just found that like, wow. So all these years of being a community psychologist, 38 years, and all of a sudden I'm learning something new last year. And it was like, wow, I'm learning that your means must be consistent with your ends, that if you want peace, if you want equity, then you have to do it in a way that is peaceful and equitable. And yet, when I think about the way the random controlled trials and things have been done, they haven't been done in an equitable manner. And research on communities in order to bring about change was not done in an equitable manner. And it's like, well, no wonder we haven't achieved equity, as we're not approaching this in an equitable way. Increasing community building and public discourse capacity through consultation, action, reflection, and study. That was new to me. It was like, oh, okay. Because discourse, again, had always been, find out what the other people are saying and, shoot them down kind of thing. That's how I was I was basically trained. And so being able to have conversations in a way that's much less contentious, being able to have these, like you, learning that new way of talking and being with people and stuff. I had started learning it as I was learning to be a Baha'i, but this just really, in the terms of public discourse and that, really helped me so much. Our social being in harmony with our physical world, place matters, taking care of places, having respect, caring for the environment at the same time. Was that the class that we took on the environment blew me away. I had all these ideas. I was recycling. I was pushing that little thing out to the curb every week, and I was driving my hybrid and doing my part. And then it was like, wait a minute, whoa, there's a lot more to this. And so that was eye-opening to me in terms of, here I was thinking, maybe someday I'll get solar panels. And I learned so much about environmental issues and so much bigger about that. And that was transformative to me. So, and then the course on Reconstruction of Race and Blackness in the U.S., that was literature that I was quite familiar with because I've been working in health inequities for years. And of course, if you're going to work in racial inequities, you have to understand, you have to read, you have to do your homework, and you have to be ready to have, and this has been my thing lately, is everybody refers to them as difficult conversations. But they're not. Not if you come into them with that ability to examine self and to be able to realistically look at yourself. I mean, I was raised luckily I was raised in a multicultural school and a multiracial school as a youth, so that was very good. But there's still, that realization that I have a lot of white thinking to look at and to honestly think about. And so that course, although I had already been doing a lot of that work over the years, it was still continued to extend my knowledge, continued to extend my own self-reflection. And so, but I think what was important too that I learned about was that respect and to incorporate the multiple ways of knowing. Having been trained as a researcher, I've over the past probably 5 to 10 years, started really appreciating the need for qualitative method. But this extended that further, really in depth, looking at that idea that, and really breaking down that idea that despite all the experience degrees, none of us are experts. None of us. I know a lot about this because statistics, I can talk about that. So I know some things, but does that really make me an expert? Because when I walk into a community, I'm no longer the expert. I'm the person carrying a toolbox of things I know how to do if people in that neighborhood would like to partake of those skills or find some use for them. That's it. And so it really, it's social transformation, but I think again, there's a personal transformation in the way we do things and the way we see things. So this has, I've been over the years transitioning into a much more inclusive, participatory methods, decolonizing the way I do things, the way I think about things. That's been going on for some years. There we go. You're good. My work is a lot of evaluation work. I do coalition building, and I do some strategic planning. The work I do is in maternal infant health and educational inequities. I do a lot of work with racial inequities. Geri has gotten me to stay away from the disparities word and call them what they are. They are inequities. So this, I was already on this path, but this social transformation certificate gave me so much broader knowledge And then it kind of shoved me along like, hey, you got to do more here. You got to work harder at this. So I'm on a continued path, although we have a lot of programs. Every time something's going wrong, somebody develops a program that they sell. Fix the people. It's always something wrong with people, instead of recognizing the systemic underpinnings of everything that's wrong, that, you know, systems and culture and needs to change there. So I'm on a continued path, no longer happy to evaluate a program. I mean, I do some of that sometimes, but it needs to be a program that includes a systems level change underlying it, because people don't need fixing. We can no longer dance around this topic of racism. That underlying the inequities that I'm working with, the common underlying thing is racism. Underlying the mostly infant health, infant mortality, and maternal mortality disparities is the experience of racism within our healthcare systems. It's within the way people of color, especially Black women, as they're moving through their lives, the daily stuff that's going on. And so we can't dance around that. We have to start bringing this topic to the table, having these open conversations, and people living in white bodies especially need to start really paying attention to their thinking, to their way of being, to their way of being with other people. And working with community coalitions now, instead of promoting them to get out there and fight, I'm promoting them to go into their communities and build unity. I just finished a strategic planning session with the coalition I've been working with, and built into their plan is a plan to get out there and promote dialogue within communities, to get people talking, to get people working together, and to build unity. They're going to start with a single zip code and try to build that community to bring people out and work together. And it was really kind of very gratifying for me, because my contract with them is up at the end of this month. I'll still continue to work with them on a volunteer basis because it matters. But yeah, so it was exciting to me to get to that point with them, to where, and it was all their doing. It was just me facilitating, because that was the skill I shared with them. I can facilitate this. So what kind of work am I willing to do? I'm willing to only work on projects now and initiatives that have to do with building unity, with addressing systems, and no longer just grabbing contracts because, well, I have to keep, making money. And I found I'm not losing any money through this change. That's the weird thing, is when you really start moving forward with where your heart is, it happens. So working harder and harder to change my methods and bring forth voices that are not being heard. And I think that's it. Okay. Geri.
O thou who art the manifestation of my truth, if thou art slumbering upon thy couch, lift up thy hand. And if thou art seated by the power of my name, arise. And if thou art standing in thy yearning for my beauty, take flight. And if thou art in flight, through my sovereign might, ascend. And if thou art in ascent, by the majesty of my cause, halt in the firmament of the Spirit. Open then thy lips in my name, the opener. Move then thy tongue in my name, the mover. Intone then my melodies and proclaim, O denizens of the earth and heaven, by the one true God, verily he who is the Lord of eternity hath appeared and shone forth above the horizon of creation through the power of his most lofty, his most exalted sovereignty. Hi, I'm Geri. I don't know. I kind of feel like standing. I kind of feel like standing. I think I will. So I saw 2 days before the deadline an ad for a free pilot certificate program in social transformation, and I said, "Ooh, I'm a social transformation person. I wonder what it would be like if I had a certificate." You know, white people like certificates. They like to know. They like to know some white people think you can do the thing. And then I called a bunch of my friends, Susan being one of them, and I said, "You got to do this thing." And 2 of them were foolish enough to get their stuff together. Actually, 3 of them were rushed to get their stuff together. A friend of mine could not find her transcript from her bachelor's. And you got to have one to do this. So, you know, if you're thinking about it, dig around, find your old transcript, make sure you have it. They give you a little time if you don't. So if you go ahead and just click through this as I go. Oops. So as I was thinking about these courses, as I was absorbing the first course on social action, we thought about and talked about constructive resilience. Now, a lot of things that really blow people's heads up when they don't really know that much about it, even though they think they know a lot about it, because we all think we know about it, then it's like, oh, wow, that's really amazing and excellent. I've been pissed off about constructive resilience since the House of Justice underlined it and said we need to apply that to black people's lives because look at the Persian people. Anybody feel me in here? It's only Olga in here, nobody else. Karen, you feel me. Okay. So the reason for that is if you look at the history of Homo sapiens sapiens, that be us, constructive resilience is one of our qualities. We came down out of trees, helped one another all along the way, and only more recently in our 200,000 or so year history have we decided that we don't have to help each other. We already had the tools of resilience in a collaborative framework. Then we had to apply them under duress. So to come to people with a half millennium of history of extreme duress that created a framework of harm that we're still laboring under and tell them to look at somebody else about how they, it's kind of like you got to get your ego in check, which if you're a Bahai, you got to get your ego in check. And if you're human, you got to, and if you're male, and if you're white, and if you've got a degree, you just have to keep getting your ego in check. So I was doing that and thinking about social transformation and how using the term change, even that is problematic. And this is one of the things that I do in my work. I consider myself an innovator of my field in evaluation. I'm a public health social demographer. I consider myself a spiritual demographer, applying spiritual principles to the problems of society. And so I came up with this really rough definition of constructive social transformation. It's anything we're doing that advances society and isn't trying to be white. I mean, is that a nice way to say that? I don't know. Can we have the next slide, please? Is this where this goes? Uh-oh. Well, we're just going to do it in this order. So now we're going to take a pause and have part of our activity. This doesn't count as my time. And it's okay for the timer to keep running. This isn't part of my time. So one of the things that I did and I brought into the course is an interest in centering blackness, which is part of the discourse across the world, really, centering Africana and indigenous, not just harm, but wisdom. A lot of people look at, look how badly they were treated. We got to think about that. But discounting the fact that we have something to contribute because we've already been cast as worth less. And literally, if you adopt a child, a colored child is worth less. You can adopt that child for less money. No. It's true. I have nieces and nephews for that reason. So my intention was to really explore the alignment between the Baha'i framework for social action and this illustration, I thought, is such a strong adaptation of the concept of centering blackness. I just love it. It was introduced to me by a client about a year ago. And so I thought we'd just play a little game. I'll read you one of these, and you tell me what Baha'u'llah said about it or how it aligns with social action. It could even be a word or a virtue or spiritual quality. All right? So we'll start with an easy one. And, oh yeah, one of my slides didn't show up. We're just going to back up to it. But we're going to do this now because I started. I think the animation didn't work, or so I don't know what happened. So for this, let's start with wholeness and dignity. What do we know as Baha'is in terms of our framework for action and the call of Baha'u'llah about wholeness and dignity that centers blackness? Anybody? This is an easy one. We're all created noble. See? See? It's easy. That's an easy one. So let's go on to, this one is also very easy, collective commitment and power. What can you think of that Baha'u'llah brought and guided us to utilize that illustrates collective commitment and power? It could be a structure, it could be a quotation, it could be a thing we do, an action.
God loves those who work in groups.
God loves those who work in groups, who labored in serried lines and all that good stuff.
So powerful is the light of unity.
Yes. So let's go a little harder. Let's look at thriving and liberation, interdependently and interconnectedly. Thriving and liberation. What does Baha'u'llah say about that? Mark's got another one. Come on.
The world of humanity can be likened to a human body, and if any one part of that body is suffering, it causes harm for the whole.
Yes. Anybody have anything else on this? Anything leaning towards the liberation side?
I think joy gives us wings is one thing.
Joy gives us wings. Anyone else? Just in general, the Baha'u'llah brought a revelation that's going to completely transform the society. Lots of quotes about that. All right. One last one, repairing harm. What do you know about the revelation of Baha'u'llah that centers blackness in ways that repair harm?
Beware lest ye offend any heart.
Beware lest ye offend any heart.
Best beloved of all things, my sight is justice.
Yes, yes. So I was really excited about extending my understanding and really working with that centering blackness framework. So let's go back 2 slides. And if it won't come up, I'll just talk about it because I did something wrong. Yeah, it may be that this was downloaded before I added it, but I'm just going to read them. So in terms of collective advancement, there are 4 things that I really pulled together. That's all right, I'll just start. Oh, hello. So racialization being the through line of harm, which Susan already mentioned. So no matter where you look, there's some connection to racialization. What they're calling racial capitalism now is what we learned as a global society from, bless you, from extracting labor from people, not paying them and treating them as they are noble, and the vast amounts of wealth that we gain from that. In fact, Guy Mount was talking yesterday in the Africana Studies Working Group about how the reason for ending slavery was more about pose, like how people looked. So they actually lost money on that deal, because when you pay people wages, there's never a way you're going to make as much money if you don't, even if you have to feed and clothe people. That's because they didn't really feed and clothe us very well. Interestingly, I'm wearing kind of a sack dress today. Didn't even plan that. Check out, look at God. Won't he do it? So then spiritual transformation is the curative. Decoloniality, said twice today, is the treatment. Do you know what that means? Anybody have a definition of decoloniality, by the way? I'm not that, that's why I'm studying things, but I'm not that into all of the discourse and the academic side of it. But if you talk about decolonization, you have to give back land. Anybody want to give back your land? Anybody? Anybody ready? Anybody? Anybody? See, it's a problem. We don't want to give our land back. Our land? Whose land is it? Whose land is it? It is God's or it's Mother Nature's. Come on now, it's not even your land. Why are you greedy? Give it up. So decoloniality is actually an anti-racist praxis. It's a way of thinking and acting that will break away from far West Asian knowledge hierarchies that are impacting the world, right? Okay, and then the mechanism of the curative through the treatment of decoloniality, coloniality, is the Baha'i framework for action, and the learning or technological mechanism. So now we can go to, skip right past the other two that we saw to the last one. Oh, I see what happened, I see. And then we go to that one. So now you have to endure a poem. Some of us heard Barbara Talley read yesterday, so this is mortifying. If you haven't heard her read her poems, you're missing something. This was part of my paper for the sustainability course, which is the one that blew everything up. So this is Technolo, L-I-E-Li-G, and other Far West Asian fables. You can laugh, it's good. Oh, the wickedness of technology, seducing us with promises of freedom from responsibility, from limits, to have things, freedom from the constraints of planetary dynamics, promised from renewable energy sources, which might mature into true solutions if only they weren't tethered tightly to dominance and greed. Driving not so much a favoring of fossil fuels, but a desire to win the game of owning, gathering, exploiting, extracting, and yet, tools cannot lie. Designed for use, they excel at being used. Unable to resist how they are used, they are fair game for misuse. The immorality required of such endeavors lies beyond their scope. And yet, they can fall victim to pretense through manipulated proof of concepts, distracting us from purpose to reduce and reuse with the lie of recycle, repurposed as renewable. 60 plus years on, new solutions served up with a familiar yet faint stench, barely discernible, perfumed with sustainability doublespeak, cleansed with our desire for everything we ever wanted, corrupting our olfaction and murdering moderation and deep listening, our only hope. A one-legged stool cannot stand. And yet, what binds us to doom is our excesses, made prominent by the accident of hierarchy and dominance. Superiority plus scarcity equals fear. And the proximity of conquer equals terror. What remains is impotence, when all innovation seems tied up in gain, where so much is never enough, we turn our faces from the wild lands and creatures. We close our eyes to the voices of the ancestors among us. We keep our mouths firmly shut. Wanting more becomes embedded in what it looks like to be happy, while true happiness goes dormant under waves of discontent and is replaced by the desire for economic stability, pursued by unwise economic practices, like building a house on shifting sands. That ain't gonna work. And yet, we have everything we ever wanted. We are continually advancing towards a future fueled from extraterrestrial energies and the unraveling of subatomic mysteries, both material and spiritual, the creative envisioning of the young, the histories and realities of the long-seeing, long-suffering global majority. But it requires a true paradigm shift away from Far West Asian concepts of modernity to a more durable global reality, which requires we transform ourselves as we seek to reform our practices and unterrorform our reality while returning to a presence typified by indigeneity, where the ideas of scarcity, abundance have nonlinear alignments with resources. Abundance becomes a spiritual practice, faith in knowing we are enough and we have enough, and commitment decoupled from the fiction of self unfolds in the reality of oneness, where my brother's bellies receive my abundance, my sister's leaves harbor the cousins in infinite diversity, my grandparents' wind lazily washed through fertile landscapes at the feet of my uncles, or cascades rapidly down the craggy shoulders of our aunties, or trickles through dark, deep, under complex ecosystems, or surge through the oceans, their flows and streams concentrating our shame into new charted islands, or seep into deserts where barren does not equal dead, where my relatives are accepted joyfully within the depth of our collective love, where queer human, beast, plant, mineral, or ecosystem, whether queer human, beast, plant, mineral, or ecosystem, In favor of a gamble on lies, let's bet the farm, the forests, the reefs, bet the estuaries and deserts, the mountains, the canyons, and our soul capacities, those things that, if we listen to their rhythm and truth, can restore our world and build something we can lie upon, living interconnectedly with everything. Thank you. Are you doing an activity? Oh, okay. So we have an activity for you guys. We want you to take a moment to just think about what you've heard, and you feel free anytime to ask any questions that you would like to ask, but just take a moment now and think of what resonated with you. If you don't have a thing you heard, think of how you were feeling as you listen. And then you're going to do the scariest thing that ever happens in intellectual conferences. You're going to get up and move around. You're going to get some markers we're going to have on this table in like 2 seconds. You're going to get some pretty paper, which we also, if people are feeling very artistic, I even have some bigger paper. And you're going to draw or write what you felt or saw or remembered. And then we're going to compose a quilt. So just take a moment. Looks like a first grade teacher came over here. So many colorful things. If anybody wants big paper, so this is the front side is permanent, but the back side of all of them are dry erase. If you're feeling like you won't smudge your stuff, or if you want to do something really big, you can use one of these. So, and as you think of something, come on up, grab a piece of paper and a marker or a set of markers. You can use more than one color. It's not that kind of deal where you only get to write in one color. Hi. If you find a marker that doesn't write, put it in the receptacle so we can make more pollution. Sorry about that. So now we just want to see if there are any questions or reflections. This will be up for a little part of the transition between sessions, but if you're in that Michigan column like me, you know you want to get there. And just feel free to take a picture of the quilt that you contributed to. It's like a we call it an insight quilt. And so it's like an insight bee, I guess. Quilting bee? Quilting is one of the things I don't do. You can't do every fiber art. We cannot. Oh, Emily, I love that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank
This
you.
Emily Agbenyega is our faculty member.
Yes.
Yes. And we have our dear Elga with us as well, who you saw. Wilmette
She was
Institute
famous.
celebrity.
So any reflections? They don't have to be questions. Reflections. How many people, if you didn't have constraints in your life, would like to take the course? Yes. Yeah. So do it anyway. It's like, honestly, how many people are like, you already have a degree? So here's the deal. You can come in to this graduate course. This isn't the thing you want to say, but it's being recorded. To really support the learning, because a lot of times when people are in a program, you know, they have to find it and learn to get into it, but you need to have people in there sharing their thoughts and what have you. They're working hard to make the readings not as cumbersome as the very first course, which was wild. And there's like, some of them are recordings and podcasts. You can listen as you drive to work and do that kind of thing. You can download the whole chapter and skim it, and then read it later, and then download the whole book, buy the whole book, and read the whole book, and then follow. Like Amitav Ghosh is probably looking over his shoulder. Why are people walking behind me everywhere I go? Because his book was so wonderful that we were introduced to, and others. So. Yeah, and it's made to be, the rigor is not made to be burdensome, although it's learning not to be. The rigor is in thought and action. So and the faculty are learning about that, and they need your help to hone it, because it's just like everything else we are co-creating in society. We've never done it before, and it's never existed before. So we're building it as we go. And what we call it over at Two Gems Consulting, we call it next practice instead of best practice. Because best practice is behind us, and it holds dominant culture in place. Next practice is what we're going to do under Baha'u'llah's vision. So, questions? Did that help? Nobody has questions? It was that good? Shower Emily with accolades and virtue. And the qualities that, what are some of the qualities you notice in any of the speakers? Where does Susan go? Oh, there you are. I'm looking right at you. You are short there. Shower Susan, but what qualities did you notice? Humility.
Openness.
Yes.
Radiance.
Radiance.
Confidence.
True.
Truth.
Transparency.
Okay. I know who you're talking about. And any others?
Spirit of learning.
Yeah.
Trust.
True.
Vulnerability.
Yes. Lots of vulnerability.
Encouragement.
And love.
Joy.
Gives us. So I want to say about the reading that I found this morning at like 5:30. I had like this really wild week, and I couldn't concentrate on my slides. And I had there's so many slides about justice and addressing racism and all of those things. And I found that in a compilation I had put together for when it's actually devotions for Black trauma. And whenever I find one that seems like it addresses what you need when somebody's slaughtered or what have you, I tuck it in there. And it's public, like every other document on Google. It's not private, but that people could add to it, but nobody ever does. And when I saw that, I was like, that's perfect for the Wilmette Institute certificate, a social transformation certificate, because you shouldn't be asleep on your couch, And I was like, why don't I read this prayer more? So I look forward to memorizing it.
It's lovely.
Oh, Yes, we also have in the room Mr. Jeff Alberts, who is the head of education and schools for the Baha'i National Community. So I wanted to just invite him to say a few words. Jeff, really, you have been behind all of this, and I wanted to just appreciate you since you're in the room at this moment, and we have a few minutes, so please.
I don't know what I'm about to say. We're exploring. I really want you just to understand that I wish I could tell you we know exactly what we're doing or not. This is really a collective learning process for all of us. In the back, we put 5 different cards. One says protagonist on it. One says innovator. One says academic. One says artist. And one says activist. But on the other side is just a QR code to say 3 questions if you'd like you to answer, which is if you're an undergraduate or graduate student, or if you're a TA or a professor or educator, and you'd like to help us learn in this process of transformational education, not for the Baha'i community. Let me be very clear about this. Is about for society building, for everyone at universities that we're currently beginning to work with, at your universities, at your places where your education. We want to learn with the populations that would turn back to their communities who want to go on this spiritual journey and changing and transforming society. So if you could take not just 1 card, but maybe 5, and while you're at ABS, which is the Association for Baha'i Studies, and ask them, what are you hoping to learn this weekend? And now I know what some of our friends are here for, which is socialization. It's not seeing each other after a year, but we're here to have an educational process. So that's something I'd like to say guest meeting. So please take multiple cards. Please fill out the 1-minute survey and help us to move our understanding along. Because even the Wilmette Institute, which it was 5 years ago, is not going to be the Wilmette Institute in our next practice in the next 5 years. So please come and join us and help us to grow and learn and really just help us contribute to moving forward.
Thank you so much. And of course, we do have our dear registrar, Nikki Daniels, who we really owe so much to. So thank you, Nikki, for all of your work. Yes, please.
I have a question. I understand this program is for those who have a bachelor's degree, but what are we doing about those who are in trade schools? Is that a barrier to this because we look at society and
Trades.
Trades. Okay. So his bachelor's degree is not.
So yeah, I mean, you have to have a bachelor's or be a junior senior, right? Are you still doing that to apply?
Such a perfect question. We just had a meeting where we discussed about having the certificate courses in our extension program so that the public can use it and kind of get a feel for the course. And then we're even looking at high school senior and undergrad to be able to utilize, and have access to the program. And of course, we're thinking along those lines of how do we make it more and more available. It started at a graduate level because we are working with the Graduate Theological Union at Berkeley. And, again, as Jeff mentioned, we work with the needs of the population who are interested in this. And that was our reality, and we are just moving more and more towards wherever we see low-hanging fruit, people who truly want to engage, truly want to take a spiritual and material lens, look at a material and spiritual lens to move forward. So thank you for that.
And I was one of the things that I've told them probably too many times is that wouldn't it be nice to have, like for academics, like a sabbatical version where you come together and do 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, as opposed to every week, which is, as an independent consultant, it's like madness to even try it. It's ridiculous. The 4th course, Susan and I both decided we would audit so we wouldn't have to actually do anything because we already finished. And then I think for working professionals to have something that goes around like a vacation kind of thing, again, the same kind of study, And a lot of schools have like summer institutes and winter institutes that professionals utilize. I used to teach in one at Hopkins. So there are different formats that could potentially come into play for professionals. Yeah.
And we really appreciate, honestly. So first, let me, before I get carried away, truly give a heartfelt thanks to this incredible group of individuals. Thank you so much. And then in the final words, just to say how reciprocal the process of learning is, right? We know that teaching is learning and learning is teaching. And so in this program, we're growing from the feedback and we're growing from these ideas and the generation of knowledge. So please keep at it, you know, as you think of things, as you interact with others. We're here and we look forward to hearing from you and hopefully, as Jeff said, you know, having your information so that we could continue to collaborate. So thank you, everyone, for being at this session. And I think that if there are any other questions, you know all the Wilmette Institute people in the room, and we invite you to collaborate with us. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here.